talking to you today about author profiles. So before we get started, we'd of course ask that everyone's muted. I wanted to say at any point in my presentation, we'd love you to add questions in the Q&A box, so definitely pop them in. And also we'll of course be recording, as Dineshri has kindly already done, and we'll be sharing it after. So on the agenda today, firstly, a quick introduction to who I am and the Scopus product teams. Then I'm going to explain why author profiles are useful and give you some tips about how to make the most of them, looking at basics, analysis, keeping track of profiles, and of course, leaving time for questions. So do enter them in the Q&A box as we go along, and we will try and answer them. So I wanted to take a minute to introduce myself properly. I'm Isabel, and I'm one of 4 product managers on the Scopus team. So the product managers work alongside a team of software engineers, designers, data experts, marketing, sales, and customer support colleagues. I'm actually based in Amsterdam, and I joined Scopus a couple of years ago, coming from a background in strategy. And I love opportunities like this to talk to an audience of users and hear feedback about how we can make Scopus even better at supporting the research community. So I know we might have a bit of a mixed audience today, so I wanted to start by giving a very quick reminder about what Scopus is, in case any of you are a bit newer. So Scopus is a source-neutral abstract and citation database. So it covers more than 80 million items, so records from journals, books, book series, conference proceedings, trade publications, and then we deduplicate and match this against author profiles. So then we've got actually 70 million author profiles, or a few more now, that I'm going to talk to you about today. And we also create institutional profiles, or as we call them, affiliation profiles. And we've got 80,000 of these. And through our content, profiles, author and affiliation, we can give a great view of the world of research. And in our application, we give tools and functionality on top of this to help you track, analyze, and visualize research from more than 7,000 different publishers. So all of this comes together to help with important needs that our customers have. For example, what are the latest publications, or which journal should I publish in? Or how can I monitor global trends going on in research or find collaborators and more? And the reason Scopus is a special database and one that can be really useful is the content is curated. So this means that the content is selected by who we call the CSAB, who are the Content Selection Advisory Board. And this group of experts come together to talk about content curation, and they're independent, and they have a look at the different titles or journals suggested and decide which get accepted into the Scopus database. About half of them get in, and then this makes up the data and research that is in Scopus. And all of this curated data creates a really solid base to build accurate and complete profiles. So we've got great content in there, and that is why we can build such wonderful profiles that I'm going to talk to you about today. So today I'm going to focus on author profiles. So firstly, what is an author profile? Well, an author profile is a representation of an author and their work gathered under a unique Scopus author ID number. Our profiles include identifiers and information about the author's output, their portfolio of publications, metrics which help track citations of their output, and more. And I'm going to go through some of this in a bit more detail. But hopefully this page is pretty familiar to some of you on the call. So I wanted to start off with recapping on why author profiles can be useful. If you've got one of your own and you use it to track your own performance, or you look at the author profiles of your colleagues, you may already know this, but it's useful to recap it, because there may be some things you haven't thought about. So author profiles are an opportunity for researchers to show off their work. So researchers can sell signals to the research community, encouraging others to read your work, engage with your work, or think about you joining their team. On the other side, they're used by different stakeholders in evaluation. So research staff can use them to help them with decisions about hiring or promotion or putting together teams. Then lastly, funders. Funders can use them to help allocate grant money and decide, should we fund this person? And other researchers might dig into them so that they can say, who should I collaborate with? Whose research should I read? Or who can review for my journal? So as you can see, they're both sides of a coin. They're important to show off your work to these important stakeholders. And then they're also important so that others can evaluate and assess. So now I want to talk about how they are created. So our author profiles are built from the bottom up based on Scopus documents that come from the Scopus database, as I explained earlier. So an author profile is basically a cluster of all the author information and publications belonging to the same researcher. So we clump them all together and say, okay, these are all the documents by this nice researcher here as depicted on the left. And our institution profiles are built in a similar way. One big challenge in making profiles is author disambiguation. There are lots of authors that have similar names, but are actually different people. So take this example I've brought up over here. So how can you tell that these three authors, who all might call themselves Dr. Smith, how can you tell that they're actually different people? And imagine if they all publish in the same subject. So maybe they all work in a field of biochemistry, or they happen to be at the same institution or same department. This makes it really hard to tell them apart and make sure the profile for Dr. Smith is different to this Dr. Smith and this Dr. Smith. Another problem that we face is even when there's just one author, but sometimes authors choose to publish under similar but slightly different name variations. For example, Dr. Stone might use variations of her name when she publishes in different journals with different requirements. So some journals say, look, I just want the first initial, and some journals might ask for a full name. And to add to this, out of 270 million author bylines captured in Scopus, 60% just have the first initial. So actually a lot of the data that we pull in on the publications, 60% have only a first initial. So lots of them are just the Dr. J. Stone, and we're trying to match up profiles from this. So now you're getting a bit of a sense of the problem that we're dealing with. And then what about if Dr. Stone gets married and chooses to publish with her new name? She becomes Dr. Jane Ashby. Now, keeping accurate quality profiles are now getting even harder. And lastly, authors don't make it easy, as they also publish with variations in the affiliation name. And we have to work through all of this to intelligently match publications and affiliations to author profiles. So how do we address all of these challenges? Well, we use two main approaches. We've got a super powerful algorithm, which groups papers to a profile with a high degree of accuracy based on matching the name, email, affiliation, subject area, citations, and co-authors. And it really benefits from accurate citation links and the institution profiles that we've got in Scopus. Because of the complexity around author disambiguation, the algorithm alone may not be perfect, especially in tricky cases. For example, if you've got married and changed your name or moved to a new subject field. So we also offer the opportunity for authors to request manual updates and edit their profile. And I'll give you a bit more detail on how you do this later. So this really helps us build up accurate profiles. And because of the accurate profiles, this is why lots of organizations and funders use these profiles to make decisions. So you can see here a snapshot of different organizations who really use our profiles. And there are a lot of examples out here. So now onto the meaty part of my presentation. I'm going to give you all some tips to help support you in the needs you might have with showcasing your performance or looking at other people's profiles to help you really get the most out of the Scopus profile. So firstly, navigating to an author profile. To find an author profile, you can go to the Authors tab on the homepage. So it appears over here. And you can search by name. So you have to put in the last name of the author, and you can also enter the first name or initials. And you can also pop in an affiliation name to narrow down your results. Another option is to search using ORCID. So these are the options over here. And you can also get to an author profile through a few other routes. For example, if you do a document search, you can get some author profiles here or over here. And then you can look and drill down in some author profiles of the authors in your results. So this is the author profile that you've arrived at. You've popped in a name and you're now at an author profile. So this gives an overview of an author and their metrics and gives you an opportunity to provide updates. So at the top, you can see the preferred name over here. You get the option to connect to ORCID, and you can see this person has. Then you'll get your affiliation and show more. So they appear here. So this is where you can see name, ORCID, affiliation, and click show more. And in show more, you'll see the affiliation history and also the subject area. So down here, if you see anything that is wrong or a paper that is missing, you can request to make edits. You can also add alerts. So for when a document by this author is added or if they get citations, you can ask for an alert and then you'll be emailed. You can look at potential author matches. So maybe we've missed a profile that looks pretty similar. Then you might look for a potential author match and say, okay, let's review. Are there other Martin Ginecks? Could they potentially be a match to my profile? Lastly, export to sidebar. Then down here is where you can get easy access to documents and citations. Over here, these are the tabs towards the middle. Then over here are some other important tabs. So the co-authors, who have you been publishing with? And topics of prominence, which talk about areas of expertise. We'll come back to these and dig into them a bit more in detail. So affiliations in Scopus are the connection between authors and institutions. They're extracted from published documents, so they show the institution the author was affiliated with when they published a document. Current affiliation is based on the most recent publication, and so it could be different from your current employment. You can see the full affiliation history by clicking Show All Author Info. And you can also see the full affiliation history. Let me pull it up here. So then you can click Show All Author Info, and then this shows you the full affiliation history. And if the affiliation is incorrect, you can request a change by clicking Edit Profile. So this can be quite useful to give you a flavor of when the author was publishing with different institutions. Now I'm going to talk to you about requesting corrections. So as I mentioned, we've got the powerful algorithm, but we also rely on user feedback. So if there's something that doesn't look right on your profile, you can request a correction. So on the author details page, you can click Edit Profile over here. This is where you'll find it. You can also go straight to the author feedback wizard landing page over here. It's a nice little link. So what do you get when you get there? Well, users can request the following corrections. You can ask for an override. So you can say, look, I want to have a different preferred name, or you can request an override of the latest affiliation, only choosing from past affiliations. So this means these are places that you've published with before, so we know that they're truly associated with you, the author. You can also ask to remove any content. So look, have you got some content that's in your profile but actually isn't meant to be there? You can ask for that to be removed. If there's missing content, you can ask for it to be added to your profile, provided it is within the Scopus database content set. As I explained earlier, the Content Selection Advisory Board defined the list of journals that are included within Scopus. So if you're missing content, but it is included in the Scopus database, as decided by the Independent Content Selection Advisory Board, you can let us know here and add it to your profile in the Documents tab. Lastly, you can give some feedback on our new content types. We've added preprints data, and you can provide some feedback on it here. The last correction you can request is mergers. So you combine 2 or more author profiles. You can do this on the profile itself by clicking on potential author matches. It's a good idea to review these periodically to have a look at if there are any other author profiles with a similar name in a similar field. And this can be really helpful to make sure your profile stays up to date and accurate. You can also ask for mergers from author search once you've done a search for an author by name. So also, I wanted to flag with all of these corrections, you can do them on your own profile or actually on behalf of someone else. So if we have any librarians on the call, you can put in requests for corrections on behalf of your researchers. And we know at some universities, our librarians help researchers edit their profile. And you actually don't need a subscription to make these changes. So this is again showing, look, here's your potential author matches. And here you go. Requesting to merge, as I mentioned. So here's, you might choose to merge these authors if you really think they are the same. You've clicked this and you've merged them. Okay, now on to something a bit more exciting, potentially. So you understand why you need your author profiles. You need to showcase, or you want to do some evaluation. And then you've edited them, you made sure the data is looking really good. Your librarians helped you out with that. Now on to how you're actually going to use them. I want to talk to you about our author metrics and analysis tools. And these are super important to understand how you can showcase your impact, assess other researchers, or choose a suitable peer reviewer, for example. So on the author profile page, we've got a number of features to help you analyze an author's performance. Here, you can see the total number of documents and citations over time, as well as H-index. So this is pretty useful. We've also developed some additional tools to help you analyze performance. So have a look at these. So H-index graph over here, analyze author output over here, and citation overview tracker here. I'm going to dig into each of these. So firstly, H-index. So the goal of H-index is to measure an author's scholarly impact in a way that recognizes both the quality and quantity of research. So H-index meets both criteria, and to better understand this metric, it's useful to understand how it's calculated. So how do we do this? Well, first, let's list out an author's publications. So imagine these are your publications, and they're sorted from the most cited up here to the least cited down here. So this author has got 12 publications of various titles. And her top cited publication on something about COVID's got 99 citations. So what you do is you work down this list once you've arranged it in the right order to find the paper whose rank is closest to its number of citations. So let's have a look down. So I hope you're doing this with me. So what we're looking for, I revealed the answer a bit too soon. So you might have gone down and said, okay, let's look at whose rank is closest. It's not that one, 2, 95, 3, 57, 4. And then you get to paper 8. And this is the closest to its number of citations. In this case, it's the 8th paper. So what this means is this author has 8 papers which have been cited more than 8 times. If you go one more to the 9th paper, this paper's only been cited 7 times. It would need to be 9 or more for that to be the H index. So what this tells us is the cutoff for H index is 8 papers cited more than 8 times for this author. So the 9th paper is only cited 7, so this isn't above the cutoff. So this author's H index is 8. Then on the right, you can see the Scopus H index graph, which does the same calculation for you. We basically map out an author's publishing history on the graph, beginning with their publications with the highest number of citations over here, going down to the lowest. Then we do exactly the same thing as we just talked through. We have a look for the highest number of papers that have had at least the same number of citations. So over here, we're saying, have we got 7 papers with 7 citations? Yes. Have we got 8 papers with 8 citations? Yes. Have we got 9 papers with 9 citations? No, we haven't. This hasn't hit 9 yet. So we do exactly the same. And so if we look over here at this chart that's doing it for you, we're looking for the highest number of papers with at least the same number of citations. And in this case, it's 38. So now taking a step back on H index, we've got to be careful. It has got some benefit. So compared to just looking at citations, with H index, we don't overvalue scholars who had, say, one superstar publication with thousands of citations but never published again. We also don't overvalue scholars who publish hundreds of papers that nobody ever cited. However, there are some limitations to be aware of. Firstly, it is greatly affected by time. Young researchers could have made big contributions to the field, but their publications have not yet had time to accumulate citations. And look, even after a researcher dies, their H index continues to grow as the published work continues collecting citations. H index also varies across fields, and so it can't be compared across disciplines. In medicine and chemistry, publications are short and frequent with lots of co-authors. So the median H index for established authors in medical sciences and chemistry is 90, whereas in economics and management it's 15, where publications are longer with fewer co-authors. It also doesn't take into account if you published your work alone or as the first or last author, nor an author's total number of citations. So the next thing I want to talk about is some more author metrics and tools. So here is Analyze Author Output, which is a collection of in-depth and visual analysis tools designed to provide a better picture of an individual's publication history and influence. This may be useful if you want to showcase your experience in a particular field, or find a collaborator with a particular focus, or compare 2 candidates. You can have a look at output by subject area, so we can see it here. You can have a look at it by year, which can be nice, by type, by source, as I'm showing here. And also a nice thing to say actually is you can kind of export all of these and save them down and share them. Then on the right-hand side, Citation Overview Tracker. This is an adjustable graph and table that includes the number of times each document has been cited per publication year. And this can be useful to understand the impact of an author's work. You can update it to exclude self-citations up here, and you can exclude citations from books. Okay, so now let's talk about an author's topics. So firstly, I wanted to give you guys a bit of background on topics, which are created by our partner product, Scival. So a topic is a collection of documents with a common focused intellectual interest. And this basically means they're all related. And the way they're made is by clustering the citation network of Scopus content. So we basically look at which papers are citing each other and cluster them together, and this becomes a topic. So there are 96,000 global and unique research topics that are based on citation patterns, and they're dynamic, so they evolve and change over time. So in Scopus, you can have a look at an author's top 3 most contributed topics at the top of over here, at the top panel here. And you can also see a more detailed list with a full list of topics an author contributes to lower down the page. And this also shows the number of documents in this topic and the field-weighted citation impact. And this can give an indication of the area an author works in and their contribution to these areas. And then if you click on a particular topic, you can open up a panel which shows example documents from the topic, top authors, key phrase analysis, and the author's documents. Then you can also, of course, go over to Scival to analyze in more detail. And I'd encourage you really to try it out. Now, I want to talk to you about keeping track of profiles. So this can be pretty useful to do. So logged in users can set alerts. So the way you do this is you go to an author profile and you can click set alert. And then what happens here is you can get a notification via email where new documents appear by this author in Scopus, or an author gets a citation. So these can be really useful to keep track of authors. Better still, if you want to keep track of a group of authors, you can create a list. So if you're logged in, you can save authors to a list. And this is really helpful to keep tabs on specific authors and use them for analysis. And you can add these authors to lists as you're going through the product. So if you're looking at the author results, if you're on an author profile, if you're looking at a list of co-authors, or via the potential author matches that I mentioned earlier. Then, once you've made your list, you can actually have a look at grouped analytics. And this is a really cool element that we find users don't often make as much use of as they could. So you've found some authors, you've set up some alerts, then you've made some lists of the authors, and now you want to have a look at how they perform as a group. You can look at grouped analytics that group together metrics for the entire list of authors. So then you can have a look at the output or the impact of an entire group of authors and their co-authors. So this can be quite a cool thing to do here, to analyze a group of authors that you've had that work in a particular area. So I wanted to actually remind you, because some users say, look, where do I even get my lists if I'm bothering creating them? You can get to your list if you click on here where your name is. This is where you can have a look at alerts, lists, save searches. So this is where you go to get onto it. So now I just wanted to highlight, look, I've given you a really fast and concise run through today about what author profiles are, why they're important, how you can make the most of it. But we've got lots more resources. So here's where you can find out more. We share a lot about Scopus on the blog. You can also tweet about us. You can read the newsletter, and we can send out various guides like how to ace your author profile in 5 steps, or a reminder about how author profiles are built and maintained. So I wanted to close with assuring you that this hopefully has given you some awesome tips about how to use your author profile and what you can do. But there are also lots of other places you can go to get more information. I'm going to encourage Dineshri to also share those around after with the recording. So that brings me to the end of my presentation today. I wanted to say a massive thank you for your attention, and then I wanted to open up to any questions that we've got.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Just going to check the Q&A box. So far, it's just about getting a copy of the presentation, which, as you correctly mentioned, we will be sharing following this session. But just for the benefit also of all those that are on the line, we do have a web page that has been set up for this series and others. The link is in the chat box. This web page collates all of the recordings in the webinar, the Researcher Toolbox webinar series, as well as the supporting resources for Scopus, how-to guides, as well as the tutorials for Scopus. So everything can be accessed from this page. So since we have Isabel on the line, if you have any questions for her, please submit it in the Q&A box. For those that are joined in on Facebook, I have also included the link to the web page which houses the recordings in the comment section. Thank you, Isabel. This is really helpful. I would like to ask the easy way to find incomplete profiles that need to be updated.
Got it. It's a great question. I mean, one way that we hear people do find these profiles is either they ask all the authors to go and check their profiles themselves, which can be easier than going through and looking at them. Other ways that we've seen customers do it is, for example, when lots of researchers started publishing in COVID, which was a new field, then it led to lots of split profiles. So we saw also some customers tried to identify researchers who had recently changed fields by either using the API or downloading data and having a look at that, and then identified these profiles and made them targets for cleanups. But certainly this feels like something that Dineshri and I could pick up as well with you to understand a bit better about whether you're using APIs and running queries on that, or if there are other ways that we could help you, because certainly would love to understand how you can pinpoint and be most effective about which profiles you need to clean up.
Thanks, Isabel. Isabel, can you comment a bit about the awarded grants feature on Scopus on a profile?
Yeah, sure. So awarded grants is a pilot feature that we added to Scopus profiles, and primarily for the US audience. So we added grants that had been linked to a researcher's profile. And the reason for this is grants can provide a nice signal about what an author's been doing before they've really got to publications. So grants, of course, come first, the money comes, then you're looking at your area, you're doing the research, then you might come to a publication. So it can give an early signal of what a researcher's working on. We're still trying to learn from the US market and learn from other markets whether customers elsewhere are interested in this sort of data. And I'd love to hear about whether your market, whether this is an important signal that would be helpful for you too.
Thanks, Isabel. The next question is, does the author profile pick all publications regardless of the journal that they are published in?
Sure, good question. So let me be clear. The way a Scopus database works is that we have a content selection advisory board who define our policy for which journals are included within Scopus. So they not only reevaluate titles included in Scopus, they also review applications from journals to join Scopus. To decide which journals make it into Scopus, they have certain requirements. So, for example, they have to have English language abstracts and titles. they have to publish publications with Roman script languages, and they have to be available with digital versions. And so there are requirements based on kind of basic requirements as well as quality requirements. They have to be publishing sound research and hit certain quality requirements. Then the journals are decided that will go into Scopus, and then Scopus picks up all of the publications by these journals. So if the journals are in Scopus, then yes, they will all appear in the Scopus database.
Thanks, Isabel. I'm just checking to see if there's any further questions. So far, nothing more. And if you could please comment a little bit about the preprint section of the author profile. Where does Scopus get the preprints from?
Sure. So we get preprints from multiple servers, and we've chosen these. For example, Archive, ChemArchive, BioArchive. Recently, we added a new server called SSRN. So what Scopus does is it works with the different preprint servers to collect preprint content and then clean it all up and process it so that we collect really high quality metadata about these publications. And then we pull this into Scopus. And at the moment, we're just linking it to author profiles so that preprints can provide that early signal of what a researcher is working on.
Perfect, thank you. Can the audience let us know in the chat box, which is now open, what your thoughts were on Isabel's question about including grants under the author profile? Would it be useful to you as a researcher to see that? You can type your answer into either the chat box or on the Q&A box, whichever. The chat box was previously closed, but it is now open. Any final questions as well, please put it through. We'll just give it a minute, at least, Isabel, and if nothing else, then we'll close the session. I see a hand raised from one of our customers, Nomkobo. I have allowed you to speak. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free. Okay, so I think maybe that was a mistake, but thank you so much, Isabel, for your presentation. Always well received in our region. Sorry, there's a question. Any future developments to include societal impact in the author profiles, i.e. mentions publications with attention, total publications tracked?
Oh, a great question. So yeah, we are actually looking at this, and this is one thing would love to learn more about. And if you're happy to chat with us about it, I'd love it if you popped your name or email address in. So in terms of societal impact, yeah, we are looking at different ways that people can see if their publications and works having an impact. For example, is it being mentioned in social media? Are we getting lots of views of it? Are people downloading your articles a lot? So we're looking at adding these additional signals to the Scopus author profiles via Plum X, which is somewhere that we capture this. And we've also been thinking about SDGs. Do researchers want to see if some of their work has been mapped to a sustainable development goal? So these are things we're very much interested in exploring at the moment. And speaking with the research community and our researchers really helps us test out some of our ideas and understand what we could do to better support you. So the short answer is yes, and we'd love to chat more about this.
Perfect. And there's a question in the chat box. Can you give any advice or tips on how to find collaborators using Scopus?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, finding collaborators is such an interesting one. And we're actually developing some more functionality on this ourselves to make this even easier. What we recommend is searching in a particular area. So, firstly, you can have a look and search by keywords, and then go to analyze results and have a look at the authors there. Or go on your own author profile and have a look at who's citing you or who your co-authors are and have a look at their co-authors. So that can be a nice way, looking at co-authors and co-authors or everyone who's citing you, because these people may be potentially interesting collaborators. But also, if you've got a particular interest in finding collaborators, this might be something that you'd like to try out our new pilot. And that's something that would love to get in touch with you on. And I can pop my name, my email address in the chat, and feel free to drop me an email because we're actually starting a new pilot at the moment, which is about helping people find collaborators. So that also might be of interest.
Thank you so much, Isabel. So there aren't any further questions. Just want to say thank you on behalf of the Elsevier Africa team for making yourself available for this presentation and for the valuable information that you shared. We have recorded the session. The recording will be on the Africa Customer Hub. The website is in the chat box. And if you have any further questions, you can reach out to either Isabel or myself, and we'd be happy to help to answer those for you. Other than that, I'll be closing the session. Thank you and have a great day forward.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate all of the questions, comments, and you taking the time to come and listen to this today. So thanks so much. And thanks to Daneshri for setting this all up. So awesome. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Isabel. Goodbye.